In the quaint, colourful village of Balamory, the laughter of children echoed through the air, mixing with the sweet scent of lilacs wafting from the nearby gardens. Amongst its charming buildings, bright skies, and warm-hearted residents stood a bus like no other, the Balamory bus, driven by the ever-cheerful Edie McCredie. She loved her job, ferrying children and parents alike through the peaceful, idyllic streets. But within the depths of Edie's heart lay shadows that no one could see. Years before, in the bloom of her youth, she had experienced an unspeakable tragedy, the stillbirth of her daughter, a girl she had named Daisy. The loss had almost swallowed her whole, with sadness weaving itself into the fabric of her being. Though she tried to knit herself back together over time, the haunting memories lurked at the edges of her mind, just waiting for the opportune moment to strike. The bus itself, a gentle beast, painted in bright yellow and adorned with the flowers of her late daughter's namesake, became a strange vessel of her grief. Perhaps in its winding routes and the laughter of its little passengers, she tried to find solace. Perhaps it was a way to reclaim some semblance of motherhood. But as months turned into years, the charm of the bus wore thin. Dark whispers grazed Edie's ears, and on particularly lonely nights, suggesting that her loss had imbued the vehicle with something otherworldly. One crisp autumn evening, as golden leaves danced around her feet, Edie prepared for what she thought would be another ordinary shift. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting unsettling shadows through the narrow alleyways of Balamory. Yet, as Edie settled into her driver's seat, a cold chill crawled up her spine. An eerie feeling enveloped her, as if unseen eyes were peering from the void behind her mirrors. She tried to shake off the ominous sensation and, with a deep breath, started her route. The bus hummed gently as it rocked to life, but once it pulled onto the main street, the atmosphere shifted. The typical chatter of excited children was replaced by hushed voices. Their laughter faded into silence as the bus ambled forward. A thick fog began to roll in, the kind that twists and lingers, wrapping around the vehicle like a shroud. Then the whispers began. "Help me." There were faint echoes that flickered in the back of her mind, fragile yet insistent. It was a voice she recognized deeply, one that struck the strings of her heart with piercing clarity. It was Daisy, calling out from a distance she could never reach. Distracted by the echoes of her own loss, Edie failed to notice the growing panic among the few pedestrians milling near the junction ahead. The traffic light turned red, and the bus rolled forward, seemingly against her will, guided by a force she couldn't understand. The fog thickened, wrapping around the bus like fingers gripping her throat, tightening. Edie's panic escalated as the fog blurred her vision. She slammed her foot down on the brake pedal, but the brakes offered no resistance to the sinister momentum. In a heartbeat, the bus became a monstrous harbinger of doom. Ploughing through the unsuspecting crowd, screams erupting, sharp and vibrant, slicing through the muffled whispers in her mind. As the dust settled and confusion swept through the air, Edie found herself stepping off the bus, trembling, covered in the remnants of the horror that had just unfolded. The passengers were disoriented, but not the others. They lay, still and silent, on the pavement, eyes vacant, hauntingly reminiscent of the gaping emptiness in Edie's heart. She had killed 10 people 9 of them being young children. The town erupted into chaos, grief warping into anger. "It's her fault!" they shouted, pointing at Edie with trembling fingers. The village that had once embraced her now turned into a pack of wolves, ready to pounce on the weakest one within their midst. She was arrested, charged, and branded as the villain of the tale, an accusation that could cut deeper than any word could. Despite her protests, no one listened. There was no sympathy for Edie, only fear and fury fueled by the tragic event. As she sat in her cold cell, her heart weighed down by sorrow too profound to articulate, she felt the pressure build within her chest, urging her to find relief at any cost. It was there, alone and lost in her self-imposed prison of grief, that she succumbed to despair, casting herself off the edge of existence. In the wake of her passing, a horror twisted reality further. A year passed, and the town's sorrows lingered. However, the bus did not remain abandoned. It shuddered back to life, taken over by a new driver, indifferent to the shadows of its past. But as the new driver sat there on another foggy evening, the whispers returned, soft yet insistent, echoing a wretched lullaby. "Help me." And then, once again, the bus surged forward into a crowd, unimpeded by remorse, claiming new lives. As Edie's name resurfaced in whispers around the village, a cloak of pity ensued. Too late and too thin to redeem her, she had become the ghost of her own story, forever bound to the grief she could never escape. New technology such as dashcam and tachographs not utilized in the time Edie was driver exonerated the new driver, and it quickly spread and became the new legend. Edie was innocent all along, but nobody believed her. Years down the line, as new drivers came and went, the village mourned unceasingly, haunted by the spectral presence of Edie McCredie and the wails of her daughter that echoed on foggy evenings, both trapped in a nightmare from which none could awaken. And thus the cycle continued, threading sorrow through the fabric of Balamory, cursed by the shadow of a reconciled past. The bus was eventually seized by the government, who claim it has been crushed, but they refuse to say where, how, and when it was destroyed. Some go along with this narrative, but some say if you are driving through Balamory on a dark, foggy night, you'll see a faint shadow of the old bus, still shuddering, being driven by a scared spectre, stamping on an invisible brake pedal, still to no avail.